Hi, as we are getting started and excited for the NK Conference 2024, we are here with Dr. Branham, and this year he's going to be one of the presenters at our conference. And Dr. Branham, as we get to know you, can you tell us who you are and what you're passionate about?
Well, my name is Corey Branham. I've been a chiropractor for 44 years, which seems like just a moment. It's gone by so fast. Um, my father went to chiropractic school in the 50s, and he was drafted out of chiropractic school and made a physical therapist in the army, serving in Japan, working on Korean soldiers. He came back, he had a family started, and he was never able to finish school. But as I was growing up, my mother was into health foods, and my father would occasionally adjust us, which I didn't really like it. He did a technique called the knee chest method, and it was painful, and I never really got too into it. But when I was about 19, 20 years old, I had no direction in my life. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I do know that my mother had intrigued me about healing and health foods. And I know I was a Mormon missionary in Brazil. And I saw how terrible people ate. They just ate a lot of junk food, and the native Brazilians ate better, but most people in modern societies I saw really ate terribly, and they were very sick. And so I asked my mother, well, you know what? Send me a book about health while I was on my mission. And she sent me two books. One was by Ladine Griffin, Is Any Sick Among You? And the other one was by a real famous naturopath of the last generation named Pablo Ayarola. And I read both of those books and I got intrigued by natural healing. So when I returned from the missionary work, my brother says, I'm going to chiropractic school. And I says, that doesn't sound interesting to me. It's adjusting the spine. I want to learn about healing. He says, well, this school I'm going to teaches nutrition and acupuncture. And I says, okay, can I go too? And he says, I don't know. You need 2 years undergraduate to get started. And I hadn't had any college at that time. So in the next 6 months, I went to school. I crammed extra classes. I did online courses, and I got 62 credits in six
Wow,
months. And I started chiropractic school the same time he did.
wow, that's
And from
amazing.
there, my journey was set. I went straight to chiropractic school in 40 months in a year-round program. I graduated when I was 25. And in school, I began to learn about applied kinesiology. This is in the late 70s. Kinesiology had been around for a dozen years or so among a small group of people, and it was starting to spread. And so our school had a small club on applied kinesiology, which was the muscle testing as taught by Dr. Goodhart. And so I joined the club and I learned a bit, and I couldn't afford to go to seminars like a lot of students could. A lot of students were going to extra seminars every weekend. And the whole time in school, I studied hard, I got good grades, and I just afforded a couple of seminars, and I did a couple of seminars on applied kinesiology. And when I graduated, I still had no idea what I wanted to do or where I wanted to go. I knew I didn't know enough, and I felt I wanted to work for a master. I ended up in Texas working for a doctor. He broke his arm, so I took over his practice for a month or two. And at the end of that time, I was still flailing, not really knowing what I was doing, trying to teach myself applied kinesiology. So I quit. And I was debating what I was going to do. I was thinking about hitchhiking to Mexico to learn some healing techniques. And I got a call from my former classmate at chiropractic school. His name was Rob Radke. And he says, Corey, he says, yeah, why don't you come up to Detroit? Why? Dr. Goodhart's looking for an associate. Oh, you work for Dr. Goodhart. I remember that now. He says, well, why me? He says, well, Dr. Goodhart asked me for a recommendation of someone to replace the guy who was leaving. And he says, the only requirement, Rob, he has to be at least as smart as you. And Rob said, I only know one guy, because Rob and I were number one and two in our class. So I went up to Detroit. I interviewed with Dr. Goodhart. I didn't know a thing about what he was asking, but he liked me and he gave me the job. And I spent 3 years learning from the master. And he
That's
was the man
fantastic.
who developed applied kinesiology, as we know
Yeah,
it today. So after that, I felt confident I could go out on my own and maybe continue working. And I moved to Salt Lake City because I wanted to be near mountains to ski. And that brought me here 44 years ago. And ever since, I've been refining and learning and growing in the world of kinesiology. And I've learned 100 times over what I started with. And
That's a fantastic story.
yeah, over the years, I have expanded. The original model of applied kinesiology was called the triad of health, and they use a
Mhm.
symbol of a triangle. And the base of the triangle is structure, because chiropractors are structural specialists first. So you have to have a good structural foundation, then you build on it with good chemistry and good spiritual emotional energy. And those are the three sides of the triangle. And within applied kinesiology, they taught the structure well, they taught the chemistry well. They didn't really have a lot of teaching on the emotional, spiritual side, just a couple of techniques. So I really fleshed all of that out during my 40 years of practice. I really explored ways and techniques of healing emotions, identifying spiritual blocks, and diving into that. And I developed a system of hand modes, which I learned from a man named Dr. Beardall, who also developed a type of kinesiology called clinical kinesiology, using hand modes as a way to ask the body questions. And I developed my own set as a quick shorthand way to ask the body what it needs. So when I enter a person with a symptom, I first of all make sure they are clear that I'm getting accurate feedback from them. And that's also techniques I've learned from a lot of areas over the years to refine it, to make sure I'm getting proper feedback. Once I do that, then I access, and in applied kinesiology, you touch an area, and if you get a muscle test change, that's called a therapy localization. I try to find that I can therapy localize a symptom or a problem that they're identifying. And when I can connect to it, then I can connect it to organ systems and I can ask all my questions. What is the root cause? And that's a really quick summary of what I do.
Fascinating. So
Yeah.
fascinating. You've got so much background and history.
Yeah.
We are so excited to have you presenting at the conference this year, November 1st and 2nd, 2024. Thank you so much, Dr. Brenham.